Okay, cool. Yes, so Jade and there, everyone. My name is Priyana, and I am going to do a lightning talk on Jains and us being the protectors of the planet. Um, so kind of starting off with a basic tried and true principle of ahimsa, right? This like core principle that kind of guides Jainism in many different directions, and we know it to be true in kind of how we practice our day-to-day life. But in this context, kind of just explaining ahimsa as nonviolence to all living beings, right? And all living beings, including, you know, obviously human beings, and then animals, plants, and also, the air, water, and earth. So all of those living beings, they make up our planet. So therefore, kind of this idea of we as Jains protecting the planet and protecting these living beings through practicing ahimsa and nonviolence. It's kind of just like this core idea. And so, how can we do that, right? This idea of mindful consumption is something that you may have heard of in other contexts, right? But I think during Paryushan and during Das Lakshan is a time when we can really like reflect on how Jainism actually does practice mindful consumption, and how we can kind of take those practices that we learn each year and implement them into our daily life. And so I kind of wanted to talk about this idea of having a cart online, right? Just like the easy accessibility of seeing a trend on social media, seeing something while scrolling on Instagram, and really easily getting caught in these micro trends or fast fashion or whatever you may want to call it, and how that does lead to unnecessary purchases of excessive items. And kind of this whole idea of where are all of these items coming from and what is the process that it took to get something from your cart to your doorstep, right? Especially with things like 1 day shipping or like prime delivery, and things like that, right? All of those ideas kind of relate to the same concept of, am I excessively purchasing or accumulating material goods that I don't need, right? Um, and that also relates to this idea of non-possessiveness. So those two things tied together of, in the process of getting this item to me, what himsa did I cause, right? Like what living beings did I harm in that process? And then also once I have received it, now I'm kind of buying into this possessiveness idea of attaching myself to worldly things. So that tie into Jainism is really important too. And then another idea is with food, right? So this is a huge topic of conversation during, especially during Ryushin during the selection, right? Of let's not waste our food and let's be mindful of how much we're consuming and what type of food we're consuming and how the food being made and things like that impacted other living beings. And so, in that same way, I think we can take some of those practices into our daily lives if we don't already, um, in thinking about where did our food come from and what is in this processed food and what resources were used to make the food. And so, whether that's thinking about diets like being vegan or like being plant-based and thinking about how like dairy has been produced and things like that, like where does understanding how the food that we eat is actually made, and how in that process we may be causing himsa to living beings, right? So just kind of taking those ideas that we talk about so much during Paryushan and the selection and really like adding them to our daily lives and changing the way that we think about food and our consumption of it. And then finally, travel, right? A lot of us, I'm sure, love to travel, myself included. And there might be some things that we do on a daily basis where we can reduce our like footprint and how we impact the way we travel. And so this can be like taking public transportation or carpooling when you can, and trying to be mindful again of how we're consuming these different modes of transportation. And just thinking about how they impact the world around us, right? And so, kind of my final call to action is let's build a sustainable future of our Jain values and for the planet as well, right? So kind of following these simple foundations of Jainism that we know, right? Like nonviolence, non-possessiveness, right knowledge. We can be these powerful Jains and protect our planet. Um, and just kind of thinking about how all of these lessons and principles that we do practice during Paryushan and Das Lakshan can be continued in our day-to-day life, whether it be in big or small ways. So that is my topic. So thank you everyone for listening, and Michhami Dukkadam if I said anything wrong.